Alright, so if you've been following along with the Ferrari Enzo saga, you'll know that last time I kind of left off here in terms of the rear end of the car redesign, and needless to say, I'm kind of still stuck on which design I prefer. I've been doing 2D sketches of the rear and different iterations of it for almost like 4 weeks now, and I didn't really have like a breakthrough moment that I thought I would. Normally I like to update videos like once a week, but or at least upload videos once a week, but you know, I didn't want to just do it for the sake of creating content, but I figured at this point I would and I should provide an update on the progress, and the progress has been kind of like lacking. As you can kind of see, since then I've probably done dozens and dozens of iterations, changes to the rear end, and it hasn't really worked out. Like I feel like I did make improvements from the original sketch to this one, but they're so minor, and part of the reason from that is I don't really want to stray away from the design of the rear of the car. I do have here a photo, or basically rear views of these exact Ferraris, and kind of to illustrate my point as to why I don't want to make too aggressive changes, because then it won't look like an Enzo. I mean, if you look at the rear ends of these cars, there's clearly a theme. Like the circular lights is almost a must, but although you see like now lately they've kind of strayed away from that circular light, I don't know if I want to stray away from it. I do think circular lights are nice, but I mean, there's just been so many versions of it done that it's hard to kind of be original almost at this point. Like, and I have some other supercars to compare with just to kind of illustrate that point. I did look at some other Ferraris, but we'll get back to this in a sec. I don't even think these are all being shown here, so let me bring you back down. So this is probably going to illustrate my point a little bit better. If you look at like Ferrari, this is some other Ferraris, the 360, the 430, the Enzo, this is the McLaren F1, this is the Lamborghini Diablo, and the Celine S7. I mean, they all have virtually identical twin taillights, and the variation between them, even though they're like different makes, models, and years, it's not that far off from the variations that I've sketched up. I mean, I've done like dozens and dozens. For example, you can see here many more, and we'll kind of go through them in a bit. Maybe I'll sketch a few as well at the end. But if you kind of think about it or notice it, you'll see how many different slight changes there are. And to me, that's kind of the problem that I've been stuck on, in the sense that there's only so many variations you can make, and they don't look that good in my opinion. Let me try to adjust this camera to get the whole frame. There we go. So it's like none of these really hit that satisfying design element to me, where it's like, yeah, I know which one works. And whereas like with the front, I had that luck or that fortune of like coming up with different variations, and I settled on one almost immediately and it spoke to me. That's the thing with design, it's hard to really always articulate well, but it's like this feeling you get, and that's what's drawn me to automotive design. It's like you get this feeling of satisfaction when something looks right, and so I haven't nailed it, although I'm sure I improved the original design, but it's still not satisfying enough to me. Maybe you can call that perfectionism, maybe overthinking, but I do kind of want to explain that here a little bit. So as you can see, the rear end of these 6 cars is over here. They don't kind of stray off from twin taillights, and arguably throughout the years there's like a gap of almost what, 30-40 years between this car and this car. Certainly between these two, at least 20 years or more. And it hasn't really changed much, at least up until from the 288 GTO to the Ferrari Enzo. It looks very much similar, if you can say that, in the sense that you got twin taillights, horizontal, spaced apart, and the rest, it feels like they're just filling in some gaps. Ferrari F40 and the Ferrari F50 almost look identical, and I would say that the F40 looks a little bit more futuristic with the exhaust in the center. But I mean, when you look at other makes and models, these are all from the late 90s and early 2000s. But again, it's hard to say which design is a lot better. I do think I see why Frank Stevenson, I think it was him that started to veer off from having the twin tail lights inside the car or inside the panel of the back to having it a little bit exposed. And then in the Enzo, it's even more exposed because he's probably thinking like, how do I reinvent or kind of reinvigorate this dated design, which works, but it's like there's only so many ways you can change it up for the sake of just changing it up. And that's kind of what been my problem. Just to kind of bring it back again, I could go with something, a completely unique rear end, but I still want to stick with the Ferrari theme. And it ends up being like, in some ways, not even just unique to Ferrari, because you see a lot of other cars kind of emulated this twin taillight design. But what I thought I would do, and I mean, I have other cars' rear ends here in general. Now, this isn't like too important, but I do want to emulate that. Like when I look at the back end of most cars, there's at least not a lot of flow to it. And they kind of just, it's like they come up with a pattern and they try to fill a lot of gaps. Like, I don't know if you can tell from the camera, but you can almost take any supercar or hypercar rear view and you get the impression that they came up with one cool feature, like some sort of cool light or exhaust, and then the rest is just filling in with shapes, like filling the panel with shapes. Like, I don't understand. I mean, it's a dark video here or a dark photo here, but I don't know why there's this trapezoid shape in the back of this Bugatti, and it has what looks like to be 6 tailpipes. This Lamborghini Revuelto is like a perfect example of like, okay, you got the cool lights, you got the exhaust in between them, but then underneath the lights and the exhaust, it just seems like it's just filler. It's like you got an oversized diffuser and everything is just dark spacing and lines and panels that don't really flow. Now we'll come back to this Pagani Zonda in a bit, because I think this is probably arguably done better than most of these other cars. This Lotus, I don't know if you can tell, I looked at almost every back end of every supercar or hypercar, and I realized you either have to stray really far from the Ferrari design to make it work and make it be unique, because I like this rear end design, but then it almost becomes like abstract and it loses the essence of Ferrari and it loses the essence of the Enzo. So within the constraints that I set for myself by making this redesign of the Ferrari Enzo, I kind of put myself in a block where I can't make too many changes, and the ones I do end up looking like it's a change for the sake of a change and not because it actually looks a lot better. But I'll briefly go over some like redesigns that I did. These are all quick little sketches. I'll put this paper behind it so it doesn't bleed through the previous image. But you can see that I kind of dabble with like tail lights and exhaust lights in different shapes and different like sizes. But again, I'll just go over these really quickly. I'm not going to explain each and every one because I've done like dozens and dozens at this point. But you can tell I've even gone with like just steering very far away from the traditional taillight designs of Ferrari just to see what it would look like. Although a lot of them you can argue that they look similar, and that's because I've constrained myself to like a boxy rear end that looks like Formula One. That was mentioned in my previous video. If you haven't watched it, feel free to go ahead and do so. It'll give some more context to this. But this overall shape, I've kept the shape of the body. Sometimes you'll see they're like even blank because at this point I've just made templates of it. Now I'll go through these real quick, but you can see I dabble with the lights being inside, being slightly outside, different shapes of tail lights, but nothing again really stuck out to me. Again, just I've practiced this or focused on these 2D designs so much that I've barely done any perspective drawing It's all been just mostly 2D because I thought I'd get this design in a week or two, but it hasn't been. Like you can see, I've been like playing with putting the lights inside, outside, the exhaust kind of all over the place, up, down, around, experimenting with triple lights, just totally different shapes. This one kind of reminds me of the face of a cat. Changing the fender shapes and sizes, just dabbling with everything, and then nothing really stuck out to me. Just doing minor tweaks of the lines and everything, but again, you can see gone with completely different taillights and whatnot. Again, nothing really stood out. Some of these are just templates. I try to make this look like a previous Ferrari, a Testarossa, but it didn't really, again, nothing really worked. It's only when, now I don't even know if this, you might agree with this, I'm not sure. It's only when I tried to go with vertical taillights that I think I might have stumbled onto something. Now, who knows? In the next video, I might say, no, that was a totally bad idea. But I feel like the only progress I made was when I went with a little vertical. Now here you can tell I haven't perfected it because I feel like there's a lot of dead space here on the inside of these areas. But you can then argue that like with the taillights being so high up, there's dead space at the bottom too. So it's kind of hard to make it flow right and sit balanced, just visually feel satisfying. And I think that's why something's just not been connecting. Again, I've done like dozens of these. I played around with like the shapes of the slant of the bolsters of the car or the fenders, whatever you want to call them. I've gone with really long vertical lights, gone back to the traditional route. But again, like everything just, I made some progress. Like I said, I think I like that twin taillight design. I played around with the shape of where I want them, how high, how large. So I've kind of been, I guess, progressing towards that. Also the shape of the rear bottom part of the car, I went from this flat design. I'm kind of liking the look of the angled, the center being a little bit high and then it coming down a little bit towards the ends. Basically this shape or this shape, as opposed to the flatter look like this or like this. Anyways, those are what I've been leaning towards, but again, nothing was like really concrete. And this is what I'm kind of talking about with almost just drawing templates of this stuff. But this illustrates the shape of the rear diffuser that I've kind of been leaning towards, as opposed to this line being straight. But again, I even tried with putting, like playing around with the circular lights, trying to modernize them, but even going with just completely different lights that would kind of still be in line with the theme of Ferraris in terms of being quad lights, like twin tail lights, but these are certainly not circular. Again, I keep coming back to this, like when I look at all of these designs, I should bring this up a little. I keep coming back to this shape for some reason. Anyways, so yeah, like this is where I left off, and it's kind of, and I thought like, would this be Ferrari? Does this look crazy to me? Because I mean, I can center the taillights a little bit more towards the center to kind of not have that dead space that you see here. I mean, look, if you look at these three versions, they're slightly different, but this one's completely in the center. This one's a little bit more towards the outer. It doesn't have that dead space, but it looks nicer to me. This one looks too much in the center. It almost looks, I don't know, like it's cross-eyed. That's when you have the problem of bringing them too much inwards. This is too much outwards. So it's really like, you got to really play around with the balance of it. And I think this is working. So then I asked myself, is this Ferrari? Like, would this be in line with Ferrari? And obviously when I look at these, my gut answer was no. So I had to do a little bit more research, and that's when the most, almost arguably the most famous Ferrari comes into play, where this is the rear end of the Ferrari 250 GTO, I believe. It's certainly the most expensive Ferrari, I think, on auction. I think, I don't know, it's worth over 25 million now. But when you look at this, you realize even before the 288 GTO, they had twin taillights, but they were vertical. So, I mean, to me, this is not like the greatest design, but it just goes to show that it's arguably one of the more beautiful Ferraris. Certainly valued a lot, and it does show that it is in line with Ferrari to have vertical taillights, or at least vertically aligned twin taillights. So that was kind of reassuring to me. And I really like this photo or this collage the most, because here I got the back view of the Formula One car, and it does show like it's in line with the Enzo, what I've been trying to kind of emulate with these designs. These big chunky Michelin wheels that you see here, I've been trying to emulate with the rear end. And I think it's somewhat successful. It certainly does give the car an aggressive look, if you compare these two. And then you're also tying in the Ferrari heritage of the taillights, not just for the sake of it, because I mean, I can argue why it's Ferrari and why it looks good, but it's still, at the end of the day, when I look at it, it has to look better. And to me, it does. Like, if I compare this one to the original Enzo that I sketched up, I mean, although it's right up here, but I mean, you want to compare like apples to apples. So, like if you compare these two, I would argue that this style, although it's not fully finished or refined, it does look better than this, in my opinion. I mean, given the constraints that I have, sure, I could completely modernize the lights, change the whole look, but being in line with Ferrari, I think this looks more aggressive. This has a better stance on the road. Certainly the rear spoiler in this helps, the addition of that. But even taking that away, I think this would look cool, which is why I said I'll come back to the Enzo, or sorry, the Zonda. I feel like out of all these designs, having these vertical taillights, I don't know where Pagani came up with it, but or what inspired it. Again, it's certainly not unique to Ferrari or Zonda or Pagani, but I do feel like that's the direction I'm leaning towards. And it's certainly not blasphemy when arguably the world's most famous Ferrari, or expensive Ferrari at least, has that kind of light, and it's one of the older Ferraris. So this is the update I wanted to provide. Again, I will dabble some more illustrations here. At this point, I've kind of like almost mastered quickly sketching the rear view of this car and playing around with it. But I might even just, I don't know, for the sake of it, just do one now. I don't know if this will show on camera, but I've been like doing these like so much where I'm trying to not get my head in the way, as always, but it's just basically making a rectangle. And then I know I want the rear end of the car. One thing I picked up is I do want the back end to kind of close in a little bit. So this would be the sides of the car. The back end would kind of come in a little bit from that. It'll extend up towards the spoiler. So the wing would go there. This is roughly where the car would be. And then I do like that dip that the Enzo has in the middle. I already mentioned that, where another spoiler goes over here. And then here, the fenders still kind of, the fenders still go in. Here, roughly the car would bottom out. And then here's where I was saying, instead of making a flat line here, I've kind of been doing a slanted down line where it goes, and then kind of goes back out there. And then I've kind of added these lines or creases right here towards the center of the car, or maybe this kind of the back end sticks out a little bit, and then maybe another crease there. So I don't know if this will show, but I really haven't figured out where the exhaust would go, but I know I like the brake lights to kind of emulate the Formula One car, and I think I'd put it high over here. This could be where the I mean, in the current version of the Enzo, that's where the logo goes. They did emulate this thing. I don't know if it's just, it looks like it's just mesh, because it's certainly not the exhaust. They're on the sides, but the lights could go here, or technically the exhaust could even come out there, but I think that's too high. The lights could also come out here. But anyways, so either the exhaust could come out of any of these two. It'll be in line with being centered, like, well, not in the Formula One, because in the Formula One car, the exhaust comes out of here, which is pretty interesting. And this is a 2001 Formula One, so it's a Formula One car, so it's in line with the era of the Enzo. I made sure to bring this photo in the collage because the newer ones look pretty different. Anyway, so having said that, I would bring the lights of the car kind of towards the center of this area now, and I would make them relatively big. Now one could be smaller, one could be larger, but I think I'd like to keep them roughly the same size, just because. And by bringing in the fender at the back a little bit closer, I kind of eliminated the dead space, which was my intention. So it makes the design a little bit more satisfying. And here would be essentially like a diffuser, and then the cockpit of the car would kind of come out somewhere like this. And then again, we'll have that dip to emulate the two cockpits, but essentially it's one. The rear glass windshield would probably end there, and maybe I'll just add another flare there, but as you can see, like, I'm not doing a lot of filler stuff where you see like, especially in the LaFerrari, to me, I don't know what they were doing here. Like, it's all over the place. You got this black reinforcement bumper, like, there is no flow at all, in my opinion. I mean, this version of the Ferrari, I forget the name, this looks a little bit more cleaned up. You can see the lights are still twin semi, I don't even know what you call the shape. They're circular, but they're not fully circular. Again, this, you can tell why they've gone this route, because like the twin circular lights have just been so done in the 80s and 90s that Ferrari had to switch it up almost for the sake of switching it up. But I mean, this looks better than the LaFerrari in my opinion. Obviously it is newer, but again, it's a little weird. The placing of the two exhausts doesn't really make sense. This area doesn't make sense. I mean, now this is like, it's very dark here, but there's like large diffusers over here. They've just done a lot of filler stuff. Like, they're just bringing in lines and shapes just to fill the area up. And that's what I feel like is the problem with most supercars, the back. Because most people, and arguably myself, we focus on the front of the car so much that the back almost becomes an afterthought, and almost every one of the cars have a flaw, but we don't even really care because we mostly just, like, I guess as human beings, we think the front of the car is the face, and no one really like looks at the back. Kind of like we don't look at the back of anyone's head, if that makes any sense. But anyways, I do think that the back of the car is still important, and kind of having a consistent theme, because visually appealing, it's like you can get satisfaction from, my goal is to get satisfaction from looking at the car from every angle. And if you don't get that from the back, then I feel like, or the sides or the front, then there's room for improvement. So, and that's the whole point of this channel. It's kind of fun to think about these things and kind of solve these challenges. This is like my version of like solving puzzles. I could do this all day. Certainly I can talk about it all day, as you can tell. But I'll leave that up here. Let me know what you think in the comments. Feel free to, I don't know, provide your input. If you agree, if you disagree. Again, this is all very subjective. Someone could say, hey, no, you got it wrong, and this is the best shape. I can, you know, it's hard to argue with design. It's just kind of a gut feeling. But again, they say to some degree beauty is universal. So that's this video update for now. Again, who knows, in the next video I might have nailed it, or I might be like, nope, this was not the right approach, I came up with something better. But again, I thought I'd provide an update and we'll go from there. Thanks for watching.